Hi, everyone. Thank you for being with us again. It's European Crypto Initiative, and here for you, Marina. We are hosting another EUCI Insights, another live on LinkedIn. I think this time we're streaming on X as well. And we're going to discuss the Savings and Investments Union strategy today with Victoria Jahn, Head of Regulatory Affairs at 21X. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks. Hi, all together.
So again, we discussed this topic in a previous live. We are going to talk about it today. We're going to have other events discussing this topic because it is one of the most important ones, specifically now with the new commission, with the new department, DG, that is responsible for finance in Europe, the savings and investment strategy, but specifically when it comes to blockchain and crypto, we're talking about tokenization, infrastructure, the DLT Pilot Regime, and potentially a new framework that might come from the DLT Pilot Regime, some renewed framework that we're going to talk about, and who to talk about it better than someone that went through the whole process. So again, it's a really big privilege to have you here, Victoria. I'm going to ask you the first question, which is usually the personal question. How did you come up and be interested in blockchain and crypto? You do have a very strong legal and regulatory background. So at some point, you must have been interested in what was happening in this space and joining then 21X.
So thanks again for the invite and the opportunity to have this exciting interview with you to discuss the most important topic, I would say, the SIU consultation, which was introduced to kind of revolutionize our capital market infrastructure. And as a part of this, we have the DLT Pilot Regime 2, which will be hopefully amended. But first things first, to me, I'm, of course, Head of Regulatory Affairs, as you mentioned. I joined 21X in March this year, but we have kind of history because in my former position, I was lawyer with Waldeck Rechtsanwälte. It's a middle-sized law firm based here in Frankfurt. And in this role, I advised 21X regarding the go-to-market phase and the kind of successful, finishing line with the license. So we have kind of history, and I'm familiar with the 21X business model and the whole team. And yes, to me, I entered the crypto and digital asset space in 2017, so relatively early, I would say. I get in touch with this during my studies here in Frankfurt, and I was at the first moment completely obsessed. So I was touched by kind of the technology that is introduced with DLT and the opportunities that are linked to this great technology. So I saw a lot of use cases, and in particular when it comes to the capital market, of course, and how we can kind of make more efficient trading venues and settlement systems. So when we see the history of the kind of development of crypto assets and digital assets, there was first the development of crypto assets, so the currency part of the token. And then this all moved kind of towards the securities part. As a lawyer, I was very much into the topics of building business models around crypto assets first. And then we had the I would say a very great development around MiCA, which is still an ongoing topic. But I have the experience that this whole topic of tokenizing securities is something that will kind of bring a lot of movement into the existing capital markets. And this is a fact that touched me and yes, brought me to the decision to skip the part of being a lawyer for the rest of my life and to go to 21x. And yes, to be part of the journey to yes, build an infrastructure and a secondary market based on distributed ledger technology, and to kind of have now the opportunity to build the plate for security token and trading and settlement around this. So I'm now in this journey, and I'm very happy to be there. And yes, to also have the opportunity to have kind of discussions and a lot of actions regarding some amendments to the existing frameworks, and to have insight or in-depth discussions with also representatives of, for example, EU Commission and the Parliament, to discuss these things and to foster the developments here. And so there are a lot of parts and aspects of this, I would say, role I'm fulfilling that are very exciting from different perspectives.
Wow, you've been in the crypto space for such a long time. You've seen it all, I can say, specifically coming from 2017. And this is really a moment, as you mentioned, that is really, really important for the whole Europe, but especially when we have discussions in Brussels on tokenization and on the result of the DLT pilot regime. So 21x, as you mentioned, was the first platform that was licensed under the DLT pilot regime. You're working on combining trading and settlement on chain. So for the listeners that might not be that familiar with the DLT pilot regime, we know that that might be a new topic just because we have discussed MiCA so much in the past. We have discussed other topics, and right now it's really something that has been brewing in Brussels. So the DLT pilot regime is really a temporary pilot regime. This is why we're also discussing, its range and maybe reopening of it for the market infrastructures that mostly facilitate trading and settlement on the distributed ledger technology. So it's kind of a pretty new thing. And the decision at the beginning was to start with a pilot regime, see the results, and then consider continuing in one or the other direction. And here, I wanted to ask you specifically, because you've been through the whole process, how did the process go? What were the challenges? And of course, we'll later discuss what would be your feedback, how to amend it, etc. But why do you think, in general, it might be harder to go through the DLT pilot regime? Or why do you think there are not that many projects that also were in a way licensed under this regime in the past, and we haven't seen much now? So it's again very valuable to have you as one going through this process.
Thanks. So there are many topics related to your question or to your statement. So first of all, I would like to clarify that the DLT pilot regime does not have a clear expiry date. So it is, of course, in a pilot shape, but it will last. So there is no expiry date. So we are very convinced that it will continue. So having this said, the thing is, what is the limitation around the DLT pilot regime? Of course, we have, so it was part of the financial package coming from the EU Commission, aside to MiCA. So we see that it has some importance, huge importance, to be honest, but it also was introduced with limitations. What are these limitations? These are product-related limitations to some kind. So what is this? We have the opportunity to list and, of course, then settle equity products, debt instruments, and funds. So these three types are the core types eligible for trading, and some other products are kind of not eligible to our platform. So this is kind of a limitation when it comes to the products, and also when it comes to product-related thresholds, we have linked to these 3 types specific thresholds that are related to the issuer and the issuance. So when it comes to shares, the market capitalization of the issuer shouldn't exceed 500 million, for example. So we have some thresholds also there to kind of privilege the small and medium enterprises. This was kind of the intention from the legislature side. And then we have kind of overall thresholds too, to just have control, I would say, of what is going on the platform. I think this was kind of the intention of the legislator. Because we have on the other side the opportunity to be exempted from a lot of regulations that normally apply to, for example, the CSD and also to trading venues that have a kind of regular authorization under the existing regulatory framework. And to kind of have the exemptive relief on one side, you have to give kind of limitation to the legislator on the other side. And this is kind of the reason behind this. But the expectation from our side, and this is also something that we can see, I will come back to this point later, but when we see the recent publications from the EU institutions, these limitations will be kind of, yes, removed, I would say, or adjusted at least. Why is this? Because the potential of DLT-based capital markets are crystal clear. And this also is recognized by the legislators. I do not know if you have recognized the report coming from ESMA. It is a report that relates to the DLT pilot regime and the kind of success of the DLT pilot regime. So it evaluates what was going on the last 3 years and what needs to be done to improve the DLT pilot regime. And there we have a strong kind of commitment to the DLT pilot regime, and also clear signals that also ESMA promotes the adjustment of the DLT pilot regime as regards the implementation in the existing regulatory framework, for example, and also to get rid of the limitations. It is not very clear at the moment when you look in the report what will be the concrete measure and what will be the concrete proposal, but this is a strong recommendation coming from ESMA, and it is very likely that also the European Commission, who will kind of receive this report, will implement these recommendations into the next upcoming proposals that are expected in the course of the SIU consultation. So there is a clear path, I would say, to get kind of rid of the limitations here, and yes, to with having this unleash the full potential of the DLT pilot regime. And this is yes, the great hope that we have, and some kind of the clear expectation we have. Otherwise, we wouldn't have built this on the basement of this DLT pilot regime, because yes, we were kind of one of the first one building this, and the only one running the DLT TSS model. For those that have no clue what is a DLT TSS, it's a distributed ledger technology-based trading and settlement system. So the T and the S is kind of is the wording for the trading and settlement part, combining this. And yes, so and this is also kind of revolutionary, because in the traditional world, you normally have a clear separation between the trading part and the settlement part. The settlement part is up to the CSDs. They are kind of running the settlement world. And on the other hand, you have the exchanges and other MTFs just enabling the trading. And under the DLT pilot regime, we have on one hand, the opportunity to build this based on the DLT, and also in a combination of these two words. And this potential was luckily recognized by all of the legislators. And now we can kind of have this continued and also in a improved manner to make the styled DLT pilot regime more attractive to the market and also other applicants. We have kind of raised interest here, also coming from the applicant side. The report also mentioned other applicants, I think 3 that have already submitted their application form, but also other interests here. And the market, of course, and that is what we see when it comes to our customer side, is raising, of course. So we have huge issuer coming with their products, partially existing issuances that in the next step should be built on DLT. So that try to change the format of the issuances, coming from the physical paper to the tokenized word. And this relates to a lot of huge, kind of fund enabler, and also from the equity side and that instrument side, of course, too. So a lot of potential here coming from the issuance side, also providers like BlackRock and others are very or highly interested in bringing their products on chain. And yes, the one thing is to have this on chain. The other thing is to make it tradable, because this is kind of the condition to have a product that is kind of attractive to also retailers and institutional investors, and to have kind of liquidity and trading with this product. And this is kind of the precondition to have a successful product. And at the moment, we are kind of seeing the whole life cycle of a tokenized issuance stacking with the primary market phase. And with the DLT pilot regime, I mentioned the exemptive relief. You have this one-time opportunity to build secondary market under the existing law. Besides the DLT pilot regime, you have just limited opportunities to make your product tradable, which is only OTC tradable, I would say, so in a bilateral fashion. And we have some limited opportunities under the electronic securities law here in Germany to make them tradable. Yes, but so the only way to have the secondary market phase here is with the DLT pilot regime. And this is one of the main reasons, I would say, to make this permanent and also included in the existing framework, because we have a real use case here, and there's no reason why we should kind of step back from this. And regarding to the other jurisdiction coming from third countries, for example, so in comparison, for example, with the UK or Switzerland, they also introduced very similar frameworks like the DLT pilot regime. And this is kind of a role model for the legislator to look at what can we improve. So the UK and Switzerland model have decided to implement not just strict limitations as we have it here with the DLT pilot regime, but to have a more flexible model and a risk-based approach here. And this was also kind of the proposals that we included in our response in the SIU consultation, to have this more risk-flexible based approach. To have it more proportional here in the first step, but our clear proposal is that we have a real level playing field with the traditional financial markets and get rid of any limitation. Yes, so a lot of answers to one question, but I think it was kind of summing up what's going on with the DLT pilot regime and what's the current status here.
Yeah, I'm like anyone that is not up to date, you just listen to the last 5 minutes and you know everything. That was a brilliant summary of everything that's going on right now. And it's really great to hear from you, like everything that you mentioned was going into this thing that you mentioned, the Savings and Investments Union consultation, which happened in the last, say, few weeks, I think. There was a deadline that we had in the last few weeks, but it went on, I think, since March. And of course, a lot of companies and organizations also responded to the questionnaire. And it is a very good, I would say, approach from the regulator to open up the door to really ask all the questions they would ideally have answered by the industry, by many different participants that are involved in the whole process. And as you mentioned, you did write a response. We did write a response as well, and hopefully that would feed into the basically ideas and the discussions they're having right now in the commission. And ESMO was involved, as you mentioned, in the past, etc. So it's really I think this is a great opportunity. Many times we do talk also to, let's say, other jurisdictions and other policy organizations that work in outside of Europe, and we think that it is a very good way of discussing and opening up to the consultations, discussions, to really get this dialogue going on. And regarding what you mentioned, the limitations when it comes to thresholds, but also the limitations when it comes to specific assets that can be traded. So beyond equities, bonds, funds, etc., opening up to maybe other products like structured product, derivatives, etc. What do you think about that? How would that work, and would that be beneficial? I think you already alluded to this fact, but would it be beneficial for 21X and similar companies, for the whole ecosystem to work into that direction?
Yes, of course. Yes, the clear answer is that we have kind of the demand from the issuer side, but also so the buy side and the sell side is asking for these products. So I think the legislator should react to this clear demand, and there is kind of no reasonable justification to limit the scope of products, because we are an investment firm under the existing regulatory framework. We have to comply with all the requirements that are introduced by the framework. For example, to have the appropriateness test before some customer can buy a product. And this is so all the necessary measures to have the investor protection in place, and to have also the financial market integrity ensured and guaranteed. They apply, and we fulfill the requirements to enable this and to make this sure. So there is no justification why we should be limited to these kind of products. And coming back to what was kind of the intention of the legislator, it was so when they introduced the DLT pilot regime, they didn't know what will happen with it. So what we see now is just kind of a limited acceptance, but it's clearly the reason for this is clearly because of the limitations. You cannot build a really reliable business model on these limitations. So this is the reason why we do not have the success that we expected, maybe with introducing the DLT pilot regime. It's not about the DLT pilot in general wouldn't be attractive, but with the Article 3 limitation, it's hard to build business on this. So this is kind of the very comprehensive answer to your question. I can just say that we need this level playing field, which is the explicit way that should be the DLT pilot regime. They, in the recital of the DLT pilot regime, it's been said, hey, we want to build a level playing field, but with the Article 3, it is not the case. So we propose to have all the possible financial instruments eligible for trading under the DLT pilot regime. The reason for this is that we are complying with the existing regulatory framework in anyway. So we will also do this in the future. Maybe it will be kind of combined with some other requirements, maybe to have this mentioned risk-based approach here. But we should, like it is the case with the UK DSS and also with the kind of DLT pilot regime in Switzerland, to open the product scope, to have not limitation when it comes to the products, and then to have a closer look to the specific business model of each DLT infrastructure and say, okay, this is a large one. We need to take care that with specific requirements, some risk will be mitigated here, but not to kind of limit it in the first place. So this is the wrong way to do this. So make this happen and then regulate, but not over-regulate at the beginning. So open the product scope is the clear approach here, and I hope, or I'm very optimistic that this will be the case in the future, because when you take a closer look to the questions in the consultation, you see that they're asking for kind of the opportunities or the advantages and potential risks that might be introduced by opening the product scope. So with this clear question, you see they're evaluating, they're thinking about opening the product scope, and we only need to provide them with good arguments here that they can do it. And I think with our responses also coming from other market players, we have provided them with good answers to open the product scope, and I really, really hope that the EU Commission and the Parliament will follow and will implement this properly to, yes, not fall behind the developments that we see currently with UK and in particular with the US. They are opening the doors towards trading of security or tokenized securities, dematerialized securities under the existing law. And we see there a great development, and we risk to fall behind this development, which would be a pity because we have the regulation since 2023, and we should do the best of it, yes, to kind of having this pioneer role here that we introduced with the regulatory framework.
That's a very important message, and we really hope it will be heard by anyone listening to this, but also, of course, through the consultations. As you mentioned, we have to keep up and stay up on our game. And just the perfect question following this discussion, and you mentioned that already and maybe answered partially. But in your view, what would be an ideal framework for Europe going forward? Let's say we think about a review of the existing DLT pilot regime. Would that be under, MiFID or under CSDR? How would this framework look like? Maybe there's no answer, if that should be a specific regulation or just under the existing ones. But is there anything else that you might have as a comment that we can also share, globally right now here with everyone, but of course, in your dialogues with regulators in the future as well?
Yes. So I think the first step would be to kind of remove the limitation when it comes to the product scope, to just open Article 3 towards the whole scope of financial instruments. and then to also remove the thresholds related to the product. So this would be the first necessary step when it comes to potential amendments, as I already explained. Then I think it would be sufficient to have the DLT pilot regime in this separate regulation as an interim solution, I would say, because it's a hard task to implement all the stuff that is at the moment stipulated, determined here in the DLT pilot regime, to just implement this in MiFID, in CSDR, in the MiFIR. So there is a comprehensive framework around this, and it will take time to amend everything around this, to have this properly implemented here. But I think it will help as a first step, as I mentioned, to have the DLT pilot regime not as a pilot regime, but as a DLT regime. So this would be a great measure and a simple measure. And then, yes, the amendments of the Article 3. So to have, when it comes to the overall threshold, so to the audience, we have this 6 to 9 billion overall threshold, and this is also something that is not justified, because when it comes to a comparison with the traditional market, only the equity market in Europe have trillions of market volume here, and we have to be limited with this 6 to 9 billion. This is way far from what we see at the traditional market. So when it comes to the overall thresholds, I would expect to have a more flexible and risk-based approach, to say, hey, okay, we have flexible thresholds, for example, when this is something, when we can't get rid of the overall thresholds in general. So this is the greatest proposal here from our end. Then at least we would like to see a more proportional approach than to have just these fixed limitations here. And then I think when it comes to I would say 2 or 3 years perspective, I would like, or my proposal would be, to step by step implement the DLT market infrastructures into the existing regulatory framework, but thereby also maintaining the opportunity to profit from the exemptive relief, because this is necessary to build this on a DLT. Because, for example, when you say, hey, we are implementing the DLT pilot regime without maintaining the exemptive relief, we would be obliged to go to the CSD again and say, hey, we need this book entry form, and this is something that must be also in the future, when it comes to the implementation, possible to be exempt from some kind of requirements related to physical papers and the traditional systems. So to have a clear path for the DLT pilot regime, we need kind of a exemptive relief. So we need both implementation of the DLT financial infrastructures into the existing regulation, but also considering the specifics of the DLT and the exemptions around this. So this would be the proper way to handle this in the future. So a step solution would be my recommendation.
Hopefully that will happen as well. We have seen that the new commission is supportive of this idea. I mean, it's really their proposal to look into the tokenization under the Savings and Investment Union. And of course, we're talking about a union as well. So we do hope that there would be interoperability between not only technologies and companies, but also member states when it comes to trading and settlement, etc. So yes, hopefully that will happen. We're all working towards it. let's talk a little bit about the 21X and all the partnerships that you have also developed in the last few weeks. We have seen that you have partnered, for example, with Cashlink for issuance services and a few others. Maybe you can comment a little bit about how and what does those partnerships bring to you. I mentioned Cashlink, but you also were integrated with Dusk network. That's a completely other topic, because here we're talking about privacy. We're talking about thinking about permissionless blockchain versus public blockchain versus private blockchains, and having all these solutions that exist today that maybe might not be even existing during the time when the DLT pilot regime was written. And the first time, as you mentioned, it was proposed at the same time as MiCA a long time ago. So we have new solutions right now, and even thinking about, what do other stakeholders in the ecosystem require and how to make it, of course, safe from a cybersecurity point of view, privacy related in a way, but also as similar, I would say, to what other participants were used to in the traditional world, plus having all these additional positive things that the DLT is bringing.
Yeah, so let me start with corporations with, I would say, infrastructure partners, like Cashlink is one of a partner, of course. So we have, of course, the registrars. So Cashlink is a crypto asset registrar authorized under the national securities law here in Germany, the EWPG. And they provide as an important partner when it comes to the issuance of securities under the German securities law in a tokenized way. So they are providing the registrar service, for example, and we are providing the trading venue, enabling the secondary market for these products. Why is this something new? Because currently, as I mentioned before, you're stuck in with the primary market phase and just issuing the products, and then they're kind of sold out and nothing more happens except of secondary market in a bilateral fashion. So OTC market phases here, but to unleash kind of the full potential of the product, it is necessary to also have the multilateral fashion trading for these securities and tokenized securities. So there you can say bringing the registrar service and also some existing issuances under the EWPG that in this way will be kind of being able to trade it in a multilateral fashion. This is, I would say, one of our partners when it comes to infrastructure. We also have other partners in the pipeline providing the registrar services, and this makes totally sense as a kind of to expand our services and to have a kind of full service approach here. So as you might know, we are using stablecoin as our delivery versus payment model. So this is the part where stablecoin and MiCA comes into the game. And so we are enabling the payment with several stablecoins. These are e-money tokens under MiCA, and this is the way how we can provide a real atomic settlement, because both assets are already on chain, and thereby, or because of this, they can be exchanged and transferred immediately. And this is kind of the revolutionary part of our platform, because when you look in the traditional world, you see that one thing is we have a kind of differentiation between the exchange and the settlement side, and it takes time. So at the moment we have the T+2 situation, so it takes up to 2 days until the assets are really settled, and this is something that can be kind of built more efficient when you put everything on chain, and that's in fact what we are doing. So this is the micro part is limited to our settlement side, I would say. We also think about expanding services towards micro, but this is something we need to elaborate. At the moment, we're concentrating or focusing on what we can do now with securities and the stablecoins, and this is a lot because the stablecoin reaches mass adoption, I would say. So a lot of especially corporate clients and institutionals having already stablecoins, and we are providing the opportunity to directly invest their existing stablecoins in their wallets into securities, and this makes totally sense. So this is kind of our business approach here, to have a kind of added value for customers already having stablecoins and that are interested in having them invested into securities. So this is kind of the edge we are providing. As my internet connection was lost during your question, I hope that I have answered your question properly, but please.
Yes, absolutely. So sorry, it might be also mine. I was basically asking about your partnerships, and I think you answered perfectly. I mentioned Dusk Network as well. In the meantime, when it comes to privacy, I know that we've been discussing, and it has been a very important topic in general. We have also seen the European Data Protection Board issuing guidance on how to, in a way, apply GDPR when it comes to blockchain. So it is an important topic just in general, and I would say that for you as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course. We also, when it comes to DLT, we have to comply with the existing data protection rules and GDPR, of course, and we are very close to the movements there because, as you might know, there is a lot of going on around how can we provide data protection by using DLT, and we have a great, I would say, a very professional department monitoring this and implementing this. And we are fully complying with this. But in the future, I think it will be necessary to recognize that with DLT, we have new opportunities with kind of securing data. And I think we need to educate also the legislators or the legislator of the added value here, and that it not brings less or a lower level of security for data protection, because we have a kind of the option to kind of disclose information also on chain, and this is something that will be provided from the technical evolution around DLT, I would say. At the moment, we have just institutional clients and not natural persons. So we are at the moment not very much touched with personal data storage when it comes to just trading between the entities. But of course, as we are also targeting natural persons or private investors here on a later stage, we are very much kind of affected by this topic, and have a professional approach here to deal with this. And also what we see is that we need to educate national competent authorities here how we provide or ensure proper data protection, but there are a lot of technical measurements to provide this. I'm not the expert here when it comes to the technical part, but I know that my colleagues are very much into it and delivering all this. So I think when we are able to show the legislator that DLT not bring brings a lower level of security for in terms of data protection. I think then the doors are open to the full potential, also targeting retail clients. But yes, we need to guarantee this, and I think the market has now the task to solve this, also by the great actions you provide with associations and taking or contributing to consultations around this, because this is the way how the legislator and the market can kind of balance the ambition to regulate and also the market's ambition to build. But I'm very optimistic that also as regards data protection, we will see a balanced way to handle this, very similar to what is my hope for the DLT pilot regime, and opening it to have a kind of level playing field. I also want, but I would expect to see also the same development when it comes to data protection in GDPR.
Yeah, and in a way, it's really the result of the dialogue that is happening between the regulators, the whole industry, associations, companies, etc. And I have to share the same optimism with you. I recently heard that anyone that is working advocacy should be an optimist, because otherwise you wouldn't do anything. You just wouldn't respond and do any type of activities around that. So we're definitely optimists here, but we do also care specifically about privacy, and hopefully there will be a good response also from the European Data Protection Board, and we can work on this topic in the future to kind of get an optimized result from the industry, and of course taking very seriously privacy into consideration when it comes to individuals. So this has been a really great interview. I am really enjoying it, and we're coming slowly to an end. I would like to ask the last question, which is a very broad one, and you have so much experience. You can really answer in the way you would like to, but it's really something that goes back to optimism. Like, why? What are you optimistic about? Let's say you mentioned already some of the things in the next 2 to 3 years, or in the next 5 years. How do you see this part of the industry evolving? And what would be the ideal case when it comes to the Savings and Investment Union, but also the whole European Union financial market? As you said, there's like a lot of things happening in other jurisdictions. Let's make it the best of what we can within these jurisdictions that we are a part of. What would be your hope?
So I hope that we will see both in the future, and I think this is not a hope, but the clear path we will see. When I say I want to have open doors for the DLT pilot regime, I'm also knowing that we won't kind of fight against the traditional world. So we will see both a traditional exchange having their kind of physical paper-based infrastructure, and this is a proper system, and it will exist also in the future. So this is nothing to discuss about. But in some specific use cases, the DLT brings a lot of added value for the buy side and the sell side. And what we see when it comes to issuers from merely the traditional finance world, they decide to have both a physical paper-based issuance and a tokenized issuance, to kind of targeting clients that are very interested in having tokenized assets, because they have a valid wallet infrastructure. They are very used to these kind of products, and they're seeing the efficiency gains and the cost-saving gains here, and they want to profit from this. And then you have kind of the more traditional target group. They don't want to deal with wallets and crypto assets and digital assets, and this is very normal and this is good. But my hope would be to have a level playing field, to have both under very similar and adequate rules, to give both infrastructures the opportunity to be market driven. So when the demand side say, hey, we want tokenized product, give them the opportunity to have these products with the same level of security provided by the regulatory framework. And this closes kind of the circle from the beginning and the questions you raised. My hope is that we have equal rules for both the DLT market infrastructures and the traditional market infrastructures, and then to let the market decide what will be the better case. I think we will see both in the future. And what is kind of the exciting part here is when it comes to DLT, we see a more international approach, because the DLT is decentralized, so it's beyond countries, and it's a very global infrastructure. And this also brings new opportunities and also challenges from a regulatory perspective. How can we kind of have a holistic DLT infrastructure and at the same time a secure infrastructure open for clients coming also from other countries? So this is something we need to enable, and yes, to not close our doors. Yes, to also have the opportunity to bring clients from other jurisdiction outside of Europe, but thereby enabling the same regulatory level here. And it should be recognized as an opportunity and not as a risk, I would say. Yes, so let's see how this will develop in the future. But in the first step, to have this kind of equal treatment with both infrastructures, and then in the second step to be open to also include clients from other jurisdiction, and to have a more global view on that, because it's a kind of single ledger idea, and it should be open to everyone around the world. This is kind of philosophical, but it's a quite nice picture, I think.
It's a global, very neutral structure that, in a way, it's also safe enough for us to be using it with a traditional finance as well. And I'm also personally very excited to see how this will evolve in the next years. And I wish you all the best, a lot of success, and we'll definitely stay in touch. I would love to maybe talk to you, let's say in a year or in a few months. We'll see how the whole development will evolve. But thank you again for your time, and see you very soon at another opportunity.
Yes, thanks for the invitation again. It was a very lovely talk with you, and yes, let's keep in touch and see what the bright future brings.
Thank you.
Bye.